Okay, so here we are. We're live again. I got a G.I. Joe classified series. Gabriel Barbecue Kelly from the Mad Marauders? Not Slaughter's Marauders, Mad Marauders. Because I guess copyright reasons. So they couldn't use Slaughter's Marauders, even though they had a Sergeant Slaughter figure. I don't know, maybe their deal only went so far. So uh, this is an earlier figure. I got him at Ross for $6, uh, which is cool because he was the one figure from that assortment I think that I missed out on, except for I think there was like a Crimson Bat or something like that. And I've just like I have this thing about army builders with the classified series because like I army built a lot of 25th anniversary figures, especially when I started finding them at Ross and TJ Maxx and places like that, where like I could get them for like $3 a figure. And remember those comic 2 packs with the Fred Crimson Guards and the Scarred Cobra Officer, aka Scarface? Uh, Bought a ton of those when those were at TJ Maxx and Marshalls. Ironically, one of those was supposed to be a unique character, not an army builder, but you could still use him as an army builder. And the one without the mask, the unmasked Fred, since they all have the same face, all the Freds are the same. That was the one that was the actual army builder in that set. But I'm sure most people like me just didn't really mind having a lot of different Scarface figures and figured that he could be like an army builder anyway. And oddly enough, I wound up making my own custom Scarface figure later out of Dollar General Cobra Officer. So where is my X-Acto knife? I just had that thing. I was over here doing like some custom work on some figures. I'll show you what I was working on. Is this guy. So you might have seen where I showed off Overlord's torso as I was painting it earlier. He's going to have some armor that goes over this, though. There's the armor that I've made for him. But that's what he's looking like so far. He doesn't have his legs on yet because his legs are over here being painted, but there's one of his legs as I'm painting it. So I'll try to remember to put up a community post or something about that once I get that finished. I've fallen behind on my community posts as far as my custom figures go, but I'm going to catch up with it. So I don't know, maybe I took it into the kitchen with me or something. I'm not sure where my X-Acto knife is because I could have sworn it was just over here. I had 2 X-Acto knives in here, actually. 2 different X-Acto knives. And now I can't find either one of them. That's frustrating. It's so frustrating whenever you can't find what you're looking for. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. So I'll stop singing now. Yeah, like my sister was talking to one of my nephews, and she said something like, "You can go with or without shoes," and I was like, "Isn't that a U2 song? With or without shoes, with or without shoes." I can't believe I'm not You know, it's a running gag on this show that I lose my X-Acto knife. I lose it a lot, but seriously, this time it's just driving me nuts. I'm going to go in the kitchen, so I'm sure that's where I left it, and see if I can find it. Oh, here it is on the other side of the table. God, my workspace is so cluttered over here, like with all my action figures and stuff, with the customs and everything, and just various action figures I got piled up around. So we'll go ahead and cut that open before I lose the X-Acto knife again. I'm going to put the X-Acto knife over here. That's where I'm going to put it. So if you're watching this and you see me looking for my X-Acto knife again, remind me that I put it over there in the paint tray. It's in the paint tray, dummy. So I never got the original barbecue. which was a Cobra Island figure. It was a Target exclusive. I never saw him at Target. I knew he was on the website for a long time, but I kind of dragged my feet on ordering him on the website because I kind of figured I'd find him in the store, and I never did. It might even still be on the Target website. Honestly, I haven't looked in a while, but I was never able to get him, and I didn't order this one because I didn't really want to get this one before I got the original version, which I never got around to getting, and it's this whole big thing as to why I didn't get this one. So, but it is an earlier figure. It came out around the same time. It was I believe in the same wave as Falcon and Outback, the regular Outback, not the Tiger Force one, and CoverGirl. And I'd already pre-ordered all of those, so I didn't pre-order him because I've already got 3 of these figures on pre-order, and usually there's an odd figure out. This latest wave, I had to have all of them because they all look awesome. But usually there's one where it's like kind of like this guy where I'm like, I could get him later. Like I didn't get Torpedo yet because I made my own custom Torpedo that I was really happy with. So, but I need to get Torpedo eventually because that is a pretty sweet figure. But I'm opening him up already. I haven't even talked about the packaging yet. So this piece of artwork, the thing I was getting around to, I had a point actually, is that since I didn't have the original barbecue, I don't know whether or not this was the same artwork that would have been on that package. So, but it is kind of like I was saying about the other figures in the wave that I opened, CoverGirl and Outback to a lesser extent, but mostly Falcon, is that while the artwork is nice, and the artwork on all those figures were nice, I don't think it does a very good job of selling the figure, and mainly because it's like got this kind of weird lighting scheme to it, so you can't even really tell what the figure looks like by looking at the artwork. It's nice artwork. I'm not trying to say it's bad artwork. It's not bad artwork at all. Again, like I was saying about Falcon, if this was the cover of a G.I. Joe comic book, if they did an issue of G.I. Joe that was focused on barbecue and they used this as the cover, I think it was a nice cover. But as far as selling the action figure goes, I don't think it does that good a job of selling the action figures. I do think, and I'm going to use Ripper here because I happen to have that figure package handy. This does a lot better job of selling the figure inside than this does. But they're going back to having the window on the package anyway, so it's kind of moot. So we got the same image over here, but cropped for a portrait of barbecue. On the back here, we have a picture of the figure and a layout of his accessories, and then a picture of him geared up. We have these weird things down here, these symbols, which are supposed to be something. No QR code on this one that I can see. But according to HCC 788, all that does is take you to the Hasbro website. Not even a G.I. Joe specific Hasbro web, just the regular Hasbro website where you can see like My Little Pony and Clue and Play-Doh and all the other stuff that Hasbro owns. So there we go. We got him out of the package. That's what barbecue looks like out of the package. Barbecue, because he's from Boston. So park the car in the garage. So yeah. When I was a kid, one of my favorite shows was Cheers, so I always thought he sounded kind of like Cliff Clavin on the cartoon. He didn't really necessarily sound like Cliff Clavin per se, but like it was that Boston accent that did it. It made me think of Cliff Clavin. So, but I was just such a big fan of Cheers and all. So, all right. And he's got the little paper ties, which I like the paper ties a lot better than the rubber tabs. So of course they had to go back to the rubber tabs. And he seems like a pretty big guy as far as these figures go. Let's see. I've got just so happen to have are you Tomax or is it you Zaymod? He's the one with the scar. So I want to do a height comparison, and we can see that barbecue is just maybe like somewhere between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch taller than Zaymod. So that should give you some idea as to the height of this figure. It might just be because of the drop down hips, though, honestly, because no, he's still a little taller. So he's a bigger dude than than some of our other figures. And he's got this bulky vest, which I figure is probably good to protect him while he's fighting fires and stuff. So like my main memory of Barbecue as far as the comic book goes is because he wasn't featured a whole heck of a lot in the comic, but he did have like a few appearances that are worth pointing out. But his first appearance when he shows up to the G.I. Joe team, hey, it's Phil. Phil! Good to see you, man. So everybody that might be watching, looks like there's just one person watching, so probably actually it's just Phil himself. But anybody who's watching this after the fact, Phil's one of my oldest friends. I've known him since high school. So shout out to Phil who's watching. Nice to see you. But yeah, he's where was I? Oh yeah, so he shows up and he's first joining the team. And somebody, I forget who it was, says, I don't see why we need a fireman in a combat outfit. And he says, that's what everybody says until they have a fire. So, yeah. But yeah, the sculpting looks good. It does look kind of plain and kind of smooth in some places, if that makes any sense. But it's a pretty simple uniform other than a lot of the doodads, like like I guess it's an oxygen tank is what that's supposed to be. That's what I always kind of thought of it as being. But but he does seem to have a little more bulk to him than your average G.I. Joe figure. So I do think that was an interesting choice because I don't necessarily think of Barbecue as being a big guy. He's not like Roadblock or anything, and of course the figure isn't that big, but it's still a little bigger than average. So just thought it was worth pointing out. Let's set him over there. Hopefully he won't fall. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and look at his accessories. Oh, yeah. Here's the Foot Locker, number 58. Gabriel Barbecue Kelly. This is the older looking Foot Lockers. So, the stuff doesn't show up quite as well on camera, but it does still have the name and the number and the G.I. Joe symbol on there. And there's the little useless piece of paper is inside the Foot Locker. The thing with the legal mumbo jumbo that I don't really pay a lot of attention to. Let's go ahead and share this. Oh, man, that's tore in a weird way. So there we got the envelope open, and the first thing we have is this plastic hose. Now, the vintage G.I. Joe figures often came with plastic hoses that were just kind of like a simple plastic tube that like they cut off a length of it and you'd stick it on one end of your accessory to the other. And this is actually something that's sculpted with like, ridges around it and two plugs on either side, which will probably plug onto a couple of pegs on the accessories. Probably the backpack and the foam gun. That's the most likely thing. That's the thing that makes the most sense. So there's the backpack with these tanks, and those would be like tanks that would hold the fire retardant foam. So there we go. We'll set that aside for now. And then we have an axe to knock down walls and doors and things like that. This is a big axe. And there's actually a second axe in here. We'll get to that in a second because there's the foam gun. And that's a pretty cool looking foam gun. You could probably use it for other things like laser guns or whatever if you wanted to. Just use your imagination as to what it is. And here is the smaller axe. This one looks a little bit more like the axe that came with the actual figure, where it's got kind of the spiked knuckles there. So you can see him using this as like, a combat weapon just as much as like, this one's more like a traditional fireman axe. And this one's like kind of more like what came with the actual figure. So it's nice that he comes with two different axes. So, all right, so let's go ahead and set that aside. Before I gear up the figure, a couple of things. One, I do wish that either he came with a removable helmet or an alternate head. But I have seen people use various heads from, like, say, Marvel Legends or whatever to give him his unmasked head. So that's an option that's out there. He's got like some looks like some places to put his various equipment, the axe and whatnot. So we'll go into that in a minute. But let's go over the articulation first, real quick. His head rotates all the way around. He can look down about that far and look up about that far. He could probably look down further, except for it's kind of encumbered by the vest there. So arms rotate all the way around. They go up about this far, looks like. I don't know if I can get them up any further than that. That's about as far up as they go. So there's that. He does have a bicep swivel, so the bicep rotates all the way around. Double jointed elbows, but since the arms have like a little more bulk to them, it's like that seems to be the extent of how his elbows bend. Not too bad, but not as good as some of the other ones we've seen lately, where like they're bent all the way up. So he does have. It looks like he has an ab crunch, but it is encumbered by this vest. This is a big vest. You know what? I'm going to compare him while I'm thinking about it. I've got Roadblock here. Yeah, he's about as tall as Roadblock. He's huge. So yeah, I don't know why they made him so big, but they did. So there you go. I wonder if it's the same body underneath. I would have to take the whole figure apart to tell, and I don't want to do that on the video. So it's just going to have to wait. It doesn't look like it because it looks like I could see some wrinkles of the fabric if I look through the vest. But it is one of those vests where like you're going to have to take the whole figure apart, like take all his arms off and everything to get it to come together. But man, he's huge. I don't know why I haven't heard anybody say how big this guy is. Barbecue is gigantic. So yeah, he's got the drop down hips, and they seem to want to stay in the drop down position. Like I'm trying to push them up, but they keep coming down. But leg goes up about that far. Knees bend. Got double joint knees. That's how far the knees bend. And then he's got a thigh cut, so his thigh can rotate. And he's got a boot cut, so his boot can rotate, and his foot kicks back. He's got the rocker ankles. His foot kicks back about that far and kicks forward about that far. And of course, the rocker ankles rotate all the way around. So I think that's it for his articulation, other than the hip articulation, the waist, so he can kind of move all around like that. So. Good amount of articulation, probably about as good of amount of articulation you should really need for barbecue to have. So like not a whole lot, not the best articulation I've seen on a G.I. Joe classified figure, but good enough. It's fine. So let's go ahead and gear him up. So we got this backpack that plugs onto him like that, and it does seem like the backpack is staying in there really snugly, even though I can't really get it to peg in. I don't think as far as it probably should peg in. Maybe you can see there's a little bit of space, just like a hair too much space, I think, in between his backpack and his actual back. So there's that. Let's go ahead and deal with the hose. So the peg actually has a little bit of a ball at the end of it, so that should help hold the peg in place when we put it on there. Now, it is kind of cold in my room right now, so in my living room. So hopefully that won't hinder too much with the rubberiness of the hose. There we go. And the gun looks nice on there. I did just make this. Cesspool figure. I think I showed him off in another video earlier. But I was thinking about like printing out something for a backpack for him. But since I've got an extra of this guy, because I found him at Ross for $6, I might can just use that backpack. I'd have to drill a hole in his the back of his armor though, since there's no hole in the back of his armor. Where am I gonna put him? I'll put him there. That should be fine. So now that we have the backpack on and we have the hose plugged into the backpack and the hose plugged into the foam gun, let's go ahead and put that in his hand and see how that's going to work. And now I'm thinking it probably would have been a better idea to just put the gun in his hand and then put the hose in the gun, because now it's just kind of making it just ever so slightly more difficult for me. Not really too difficult, but certainly not making it any easier. So I think it would have been easier to do it the other way around. So remember that in hindsight. So right now I'm just kind of trying to get the fingers wrapped around it and get the finger into the trigger guard, and boom. So yeah, the original barbecue came with a foam gun, but I don't think it was quite as cool as this one. It wasn't quite as long, and it was like you can see how this is kind of almost like a pistol, but this looks a little more substantial than the one that actually came with the figure. And he does have a holster on his leg, so you can take the gun when he's not using the gun and put it in that holster, which is really good because you always want to have a holster for your guns, but also since he's got a hose on it, if he didn't have a place to store it when he was holding it, it'd just be like hanging off of his backpack or whatever. And even still, the hose, it seems kind of like it's just in a weird sort of spot as far as that goes. So I'm going to try to kind of loop it over one of these tanks. So, but I guess that's just the best it's going to do. So then we got the other two accessories, which one is this big axe. And that was another reason I wanted to go ahead and take the gun out of his hand, because this to me looks like a two-hander. That's what she said. So there we go. And he looks pretty badass with his big ol' axe, ready to knock down some doors. So going back to firefighters in Boston, I was watching the new Frasier series on Paramount Plus, and apparently Freddie Crane has grown up to be a firefighter. So he's a firefighter from Boston. Another Cheers connection. How about that? So, all right. So now let's go ahead and take this back out of his hands because I want to have him hold the other axe. And I noticed that there is a little notch here on his backpack, so we can fit the axe into that. I'm sure that's probably what that's intended for. I accidentally unpegged his backpack, so we'll just kind of peg that back in. And this is a tight fit, but it should hold the axe. So there we go. So there he can hold his larger axe on his backpack, and that means that this little doodad here, it's like kind of a little L-shaped kind of clamp. So that should hold his smaller axe. So you can, I think, go ahead and just put it on there like that, or maybe even just kind of loop the whole handle around there with the knuckle and have him on there that way. So that's a way he can store that when he's not using that. So if he's got the big axe in two hands, you can have the smaller axe and the foam gun on the figure in storage. So that's cool. All right, so here we go. Got the smaller axe in his hand. Looks pretty cool. I think maybe they made it just a little too small. It could have been a little bigger, but I guess they didn't want to make it too big because we got a big axe, so we don't want to be too close to the same size. Otherwise, what's the point? So yeah, a lot of cool accessories, a lot of good things going on with this guy. He's they did good by barbecue, I think. I'm still a little baffled as to why they decided to make him so big, but whatever. It's probably not that big a deal. So I don't really mind him being so big. I just never really thought of barbecue as being a big fella like that. He just kind of seemed to me like kind of like the size of your average Joe. Now, like if they'd made a figure of Leatherneck or somebody like that, like the original figure of Leatherneck was a little bit taller than the average GI Joe figure, or the original figure of Destro was a little bit taller than the average GI Joe figure. So you make those guys taller, it makes sense to me. Roadblock in the comics was supposed to be a big guy, so you make him a big guy. Same with Gung Ho, same with Heavy Duty. But yeah, like they never made any real mention of Barbecue's height one way or the other. He could have been tall, he could have been short. I would have no way of knowing. So, but I'm not going to complain about them making him taller. It's just I kind of wonder what the thought process was there. I don't know. It'd be interesting to have been a fly on the wall when that decision was made. Is all I'm saying. So I'm pretty happy with how this figure turned out. It makes me really wish that I'd gotten that the original version, the red version, at some point, because as cool as this figure is, I think I might have rather had him in his more iconic colors. But I'm not going to complain about having this one. This one's really cool. I'm happy with it. So I guess that's everything that I have to say about Barbecue. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Hit the little bell if you want to know when I'm going live, if you want to hear me burp in the middle of a word. So that might be fun. But yeah, hit the little bell if you want to hear me, if you want to know next time I go live, and that little bell will warn you, and you can tune in and enjoy the show. So that's pretty much it. We will talk to you next time. Bye.